Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into one of the most infamous disasters in all of history. We're going to see how the exact event that burned a city to the ground also somehow became the very thing that saved it.
So let's get right into this. To really get a handle on the Great Fire, you have to picture London back in 1666. This wasn't just any city. It was a city that was basically under attack from two totally different but equally terrifying threats.
Okay, so threat number one was the city itself. Medieval London wasn't just old, it was, for all intents and purposes, a perfectly designed tinderbox. It was a massive inferno just waiting for a spark.
I mean, it was just the perfect storm of conditions, really. You've got buildings made mostly of wood and pitch, all crammed together so tightly that people could literally shake hands from their windows. The streets, they were more like tiny, winding alleys. And all the warehouses down by the river were just stuffed with fuel, things like oil, rope, and tar. Then you add in a long, hot, dry summer, and, well, the entire city was basically kindling.
But a potential fire, that was only half the story. The second threat, the one that was happening right now, was biological. The Great Plague, the Black Death, was absolutely tearing through those same crowded streets. We're talking up to 7,000 people dying every single week. The city was right on the very brink of being completely wiped out.
And then, on September 2nd, 1666, that spark finally came. But it didn't start in a palace or some grand fortress. Nope, it started in the humble little workshop of a baker.
It all kicked off right here, on a little street called Pudding Lane. The story goes that a spark must have escaped from an oven in Thomas Ferranor's bakery. Just a tiny accident in a small shop that would, in a matter of hours, set the entire city on fire.
That little spark was whipped up by a strong easterly wind, and the fire just exploded into this unstoppable inferno. For 4 straight days, it just raged, chewing its way through the city's wooden heart. By Tuesday, even the incredible St. Paul's Cathedral, a symbol of London for centuries, was completely swallowed by the flames.
As this firestorm just got bigger and bigger, the city's social fabric, it just started to rip apart. All order collapsed. It was just raw survival instinct from there on out.
People's first instinct wasn't to fight the fire, it was to run. They fled in total panic. And the early firefighting attempts? Totally useless. I mean, what are leather buckets and little water squirts going to do against a firestorm? To make things worse, the Lord Mayor waited too long to order buildings to be torn down to create firebreaks, a delay that was just catastrophic. And in all that chaos, paranoia just took over. Rumors started flying that French and Dutch immigrants were starting the fires, and that led to just horrific violence in the streets.
The reason we have such a crystal clear picture of all this chaos is thanks to these incredibly personal, harrowing eyewitness accounts. We're not just looking at dry historical records. We're actually reading the diaries of people like Samuel Pepys, who stood there on the ground and watched his entire world turn to ash.
So after 4 long days, the winds finally died down and the fire was contained. But when all that smoke cleared, the scale of what had happened, it was just almost impossible to comprehend. 13,200 houses gone. Just try to imagine that. Entire neighborhoods, the homes of thousands upon thousands of families, just erased. A third of the city was nothing but a ruin.
And it wasn't just houses either. 87 parish churches. These were the centers of community, of spiritual life. They were destroyed too, along with countless other major buildings.
The human cost was just staggering. 70,000 of the city's 80,000 residents were suddenly homeless. They were living in these makeshift camps outside the city walls, their lives just completely turned upside down.
But out of this total and complete apocalypse, something truly astonishing, something nobody expected, started to emerge.
So remember those 2 giant threats London was facing? The fire and the plague? Well, the fire had won. It had destroyed the city. But what if by doing that, it had also defeated the other, even deadlier enemy?
And this is the incredible twist. The fire basically acted as a brutal city-wide sterilization. It incinerated all those filthy, overcrowded slums. It burned away the nests of the rats and the fleas that carried the plague. The Great Fire, a catastrophe in its own right, effectively put an end to the Great Plague in London.
All that devastation offered something that would have been impossible otherwise, a totally clean slate. It was a chance to rebuild London from the ground up with the lessons of the fire practically burned into its new design.
And the reconstruction was a masterclass in fixing what was broken. So out went the narrow wooden alleys and in came wider streets. A new building code made it law to use brick and stone. The city improved its water supply and maybe most importantly, created its first ever organized fire brigades. London was literally being rebuilt to survive.
And this massive rebuilding effort gave us some of the most enduring symbols of the city we know today. The great architect, Sir Christopher Wren, he oversaw the redesign of 52 churches, including his absolute masterpiece, a new St. Paul's Cathedral that rose from the ashes to define the city's skyline.
And that leaves us with this one final, really thought-provoking question. The Great Fire of London was an almost unimaginable disaster, right? It caused so much suffering. And yet, it also cleaned the city of a deadly plague and forced the creation of the modern, more resilient city we know today. It just makes you wonder, how often can total destruction somehow pave the way for a better, unforeseen future?